I'm very happy to be here with you. I'm sorry that I cannot be there in person. It's very unfortunate, but I hope to stay in touch with many of you after I finish my presentation. So, I'm going to talk today about the doctor as a brand. It's a very, very interesting subject. Now, the question is, what is a personal brand? People more or less know something about branding, but when it comes to personal brand, not many people understand. Now, here's a little exercise, the narcissist test, because personal branding is not about you being a narcissist. So take a moment to think about yourself. If you made it to step 2, you are not a narcissist, okay? So most people are actually not narcissists, and you should never conduct personal branding or build your brand because you are in love with yourself. Now, the definition of personal branding. It's your personal brand. It refers to how you promote yourself, meaning it's a commercial proposition because you put yourself in a place that puts your expertise, experience, and personality that you want everybody to see and know about you. And it can be a combination of how the media depicts you, in other words, what other people are saying about you, the idea that people get from the information that they find about you online, and how they perceive you in real life. You can use your personal branding to set yourself apart from others. And now I'm talking about one of the very fundamental basics of branding, setting yourself apart. Now, here is a group of doctors. These are real doctors. They're in Chicago in a very famous hospital. But what is the difference among these doctors in terms of their appearance? There is nothing. All of them are wearing those beautiful white robes, which are very well art directed and very well lit and very fashionable. But there is nothing that separates them. Why? Because none of them have actually a personal brand. So here is an example of a doctor with a brand. And I don't know if any of you identify this person because it was some time ago in the last century. This is Dr. Christian Barnard, and he was a South African doctor, cardiac surgeon, and he performed the world's first human-to-human heart transplant operation. And that was back in 1967. And he did it in a hospital in Cape Town, which was not well known. But this was such an amazing achievement in medicine, and he gained such a big reputation as a result, that suddenly the hospital became well known because of the personal brand of Christian Barnard. Now, there was a little problem. In 1967, South Africa was under a completely different situation. It was isolated from the world. It was the apartheid regime, and South Africa was basically boycotted by the whole world. So he was not in the right place at the right time. And that's why he could not build on it on and on for years to come. Here is another wonderful Dr. Brand, and I'm sure many of you saw him, listened to him. Sanjay Gupta, he is a great example of excellence and exceptionalism. He is an American neurosurgeon, a medical reporter, and a writer. And he serves as the associate chief of the neurosurgery service at Grady Memorial Hospital in Atlanta. He is associate professor of neurosurgery at the Emory University School of Medicine, and he's the chief medical correspondent for CNN. So how many people like him do you actually know? Not many. He is really, really unique. And he also has, in addition to that, a brand personality that everybody can see around the world. He is one of the most prominent personalities on television. He is a neurosurgeon, medical reporter, actor, and a writer. So, many, many qualities together. He is extremely believable. He is a trustworthy personality, knowledgeable, and also very approachable. So he is being seen as sort of a brand. He is somebody that people will look up to, either to be like him or to do what he says to do. Another great example, Dr. Thomas Starzl from Pittsburgh in Pennsylvania, University of Pittsburgh Medical Center. Another pioneer, surgical pioneer. He did the first liver transplant surgeries. And that was also back in 1963. And he had the world first successful liver transplant in 1967. He also pioneered kidney transplantation from cadavers. And later he perfected the process by using identical twins and eventually other blood relatives as donors. So here's another way to become a brand in the world of medicine. To be the first, to be the best, that will build you a brand. So it's not that easy to be the first these days, although I'm not saying that it's an exception, because it happens. So people can still build a brand for themselves by being the first in doing something, but they can also be the best in something. Now, in addition to being a great doctor, he was also a great person, and people knew and noticed that he was such a person. And one of his doctors who worked for him said that the Nobel Prize for Humanity should be given to Dr. Starzl. I call it that for the unbelievable nobility, a man more concerned about humanity and his patients than himself. He not only saved thousands of lives, innovations, and untiring efforts, but created thousands of jobs in our new world-class medical center. So here are some other characteristics for building a doctor brand. Your personality, be human, be a little bit humble, and do not be arrogant, because people perceive arrogance in doctors as a very negative. Now, this is the medical institution, the Thomas Starzl's Transplantation Institute at the University of Pittsburgh. So right there you see the brand with the name of the doctor who founded it. And based on his brand, this institute is becoming very successful. So I'll give you some examples of actual doctors who have promoted medicine. They promoted their own brands and the country brands where they live in medical tourism. And the question for you is this: can you develop a doctor brand in your area, in your country? Because I know that many of you who are listening now are coming from different countries, or you're trying to get people from other countries. So you need to really think about all those things. Here's a great example. Dr. Dragan Primorac from Zagreb at St. Catherine Hospital. I know him personally. He is a great person and an amazing doctor and researcher. So what he does is getting involved way beyond the business of making money for the hospital. He is a Croatian physician, geneticist, and forensic scientist. He is the first recipient of the title Global Penn State University Ambassador. And currently he serves as the chair of the International Affairs Committee of the American Academy of Forensic Sciences and the president of International Society for applied biological services. He always strives for excellence, always. So you can see that his activity is not limited just to the St. Catherine Hospital in Zagreb. He goes way beyond that, and he created a name for himself, a brand for himself. The activities that he is involved with, this is what I recommend to many of you, get involved. Become an author. And by becoming an author, you become an authority. So he wrote a very famous book about forensic DNA applications. Be active in conferences, show yourself, speak, make sure that people see you, hear you, they make an opinion about you. Be active in politics because it helps. And here you see a picture of Dr. Primorac with the past president of Croatia. Get involved in charity and international activities because that will really put your name and your face in many, many instances and definitely on social media. Important. Now, promote the brand of your country. Here's a great example. I'm sure all of you know what I'm talking about here. This is the Carnival in Rio de Janeiro. And this very famous look was created by Dr. Ivo Pitangi, a plastic surgeon to the stars and a celebrity himself. This is the guy that made the Brazilian butt lift surgery something that thousands, if not millions of women around the world really want to have. And they do it. He built the brand of Brazil because Brazil was not known for just medicine. But with him, he put Brazil on the map. And that was way before there were many reality television shows with the Kardashians and all those. He just did it. And as a result, he built a tremendous brand for himself. So can you become this man? You're going to see a person that did something totally different in a completely different region. Apollo Hospitals was established in 1983 by Dr. Pratap Reddy. He is renowned as the architect of modern healthcare in India. And he is the nation's first corporate hospital, Apollo Hospitals, and acclaimed for pioneering the private healthcare revolution in the country, which eventually led to putting India on the map as a major destination for medical tourism. Because many other Indian hospitals, unfortunately, they really were not great hospitals. He was the first who introduced Western, particularly American standards into private hospitals in India. And we all know that Apollo hospitals are great network of hospitals, and many, many international patients are flying to India to be served at Apollo hospitals. Now, accreditation, certification, all those things that everybody is bombarding you with is not the only way to build a personal brand. I'm sorry about that, but accreditations and certifications have nothing to do with your personality and your own personal brand. It is for an institution maybe, but not for personalities. However, behavioral training is, and as you train people to behave and train yourself as an owner of a clinic, as a manager, as maybe the CEO of a hospital, if you train yourself in behavioral training, then you will do something to promote your own personal brand. I'll give you some examples. You have to talk about competence. You have to understand what competence means. Don't just show up to work, and don't open a business unless you are an expert. In other words, you cannot be average anymore. The world is going way beyond average now. The patients are requiring something that is much more than being an average doctor. Go for connections. which means that you have to improve the connections with people, not just in technology, by using great communication. That's now the language you use, the way you behave. You create connections by being human and connecting with humans. Courage. This is a word that not many people use when it comes to brand building, but you really have to be courageous about things. Focus on both the personal and the professional areas in which you can benefit from a little courage. So just observe, how do you behave? Are you really too conservative, or could you be perceived as somebody who can achieve more by being courageous? The character. Make sure that every promise you make, you can keep and exceed expectations. You have to remember, I learned something very important in life. Life is basically going from one expectation to another. And patients all the time have expectations from you as a doctor. So develop the character that you always keep their expectations and sometimes exceed them. That's how you build a brand. And finally, credibility. Be consistent in your delivery. Build a reputation and let it take the time that it needs. You will not build a personal brand in 2 weeks, or you will not build it just because you listen to me today. That takes time. It's a process. Empathy. This is a very important word, specifically now. The world we live in now, the post-COVID world, is so important that if you don't have it in you, you have to learn how to implement it in your business. Patients are looking for empathy. They're looking for somebody to understand their needs. As a matter of fact, a recent research showed that 2/3 of clients and patients are basically looking for anybody who provides service, and that includes you, to meet their needs immediately, without questions. So I want to recommend to you one way that can take you a step further in building your brand. A person-centered care philosophy, which is about humanizing healthcare. And remember that I'm humanizing the services that I'm bringing. And definitely in medicine, what is more important than to be human? And I recommend this. Get in touch, learn about Planetree International. It connects those who receive and provide care to create a humanized healthcare experience that works for all. So this is not your regular accreditation or certification. This is a learning process that will put you and your organization in a different place, that will allow you to build your personal brand. And I recommend that you will get in touch with Karen J., who is the Senior Vice President for Global Services, because Planetree International is a global organization, and they're active in 27 countries for the last 40 years. And for those of you who never heard of it, I recommend that you will get in touch. This is her email address. Get in touch with her and see what she has to offer you, because what they have to offer is incredible and it brings results. And with this, I conclude my presentation today about building a personal brand. I thank you very much for listening, and I encourage you to stay in touch with me in any way you want, via email, through my website and my phone number. Thank you very much and have a wonderful conference.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Ilan. You are wonderful as usual, you know. And I want to add you to our stream. I know you are here now, listening and watching. Hello.
Hi, everybody.
Did you see our audience here?
Yes, I did. And I'm sure there are many more online.
Yes. Did you see our audience online? Still much
I'm
more
just
than here.
surprised that you're not sitting on the beach with a pina colada.
Actually, I have my pina colada here.
Oh, good,
It's
good.
not actually pina colada, but it's similar. It's not alcohol yet, but we will carry on in the evening. Believe me. So, thank you for your presentation, dear listeners. We are waiting for your questions, if you have some, because that's why he's presenting online here now to answer your questions. Of course, his presentation was no doubt without any questions, because everything is clearly and understandable. But still, maybe you want to add anything. And actually, I have some question. Maybe somebody can think about, but I will pass you my question now from the audience. Okay, so I'm reading. I'm a doctor. I'm active user of Instagram and Facebook. I'm always post my only professional information, work meeting, conference achievements, but sometime must show a couple of personal information private. I mean, to show that I'm a real woman. It's a woman, okay. What kind of info are you allowed to make public for the doctor?
Okay, it's a very good question and very relevant question. It doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman. And the point is this: being on social media, you always have to think about it that you are one out of millions. There are millions of people on social media. So doing that alone is not going to help you. What you have to do is create the story of who you are and what you are by your daily work. I would add to this that the most important thing is not what you say about yourself, it's what other people say about you. So people can say things about you only if they have a great experience with you. So you have to think how to build your personality as a different personality from other doctors. I know it's not easy, but I've worked already with some doctors and I have given them advice on how to separate themselves from other people who are doing similar things. And the most important thing is that their patients are talking about those doctors. It's not the doctor saying, look at me, I am wonderful, I am an expert. No, no, no. The patients have to say that. And you have to really think strategically how to do it.
Вопрос, да?
Должно ли продвижение бренда реакции пациента и твоего окружения?
Yeah, we have a questions from the audience. The question from a doctor who is a very good surgeon. And the question is, should this strategy of branding in social media means, should it be aggressive, like start all together to put all the massive information, tons of information on Facebook, on Instagram, on other social medias about the activity, about the private life, like aggressive?
I don't think so. I worked with a doctor who was very aggressive. And the result was that people got sick of him very quickly. Why? Because he always showed himself on his website. When you went to his website, all you saw is his pictures. And he was always coming up with new suits, new watches, standing next to his Rolls Royce, doing all these things. He was a show off. So you have to really understand the difference between what is aggressive and how will people look at you if you are too aggressive.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions? Yes, I would like to add about Ilan's activity. Probably, I know he has his own brand, which doesn't need any promotion anymore, because you are a widely known expert in branding. And looking at your setting, you are still in Chicago. You are not going to Saudi yet. I can recognize your room. Yes, and carry on my thought. that you are not, you don't need my promotion, but still I will do it for those who probably in this audience, I don't know you. And when I met Ilan, it was a couple of years ago, as I remember, it was in Poland, in Lublin, in one of the event. He was a key speaker about branding and marketing, and I was just like sitting with listening on. He was speaking. It was so easy way of delivering the information, you know. Even for people who don't know English, who don't understand English, they could easily understand what he means. And, you know, that's why I was impressed of how he delivers his information. That's why, because probably that's why he is a speaker of university in Chicago, in other American institution, and he is invited by many countries as an expert in branding, and that's why I invited him to speak about doctor's brand, because, you know, that is very interesting point. Я поняла. We have one more question from our audience. The question is from the manager of the hospital. She's managing hospital, and she asks if it's needed, if you have some very good doctor, is it needed to promote doctor itself, or should it be useful to promote doctor, or he needs to promote himself by his own? What is better?
Okay, another wonderful question. So I'll give you an example. One of my clients was the Rehabilitation Institute of Chicago. The Rehabilitation Institute was already the #1 hospital in rehabilitation in the US for many, many years. It still is, by the way. It's about 30 years that hospital is #1 in rehabilitation. However, inside that hospital, there were some doctors that became experts in artificial limbs. For example, you know, soldiers who came back from Afghanistan or whatever, and they didn't have a leg or a hand. These people developed the artificial limbs. They became the heroes. They became the brand of the hospital. So that's one example. So I can add also, this is an example of exactly what I was saying in my presentation. If the doctor is becoming a pioneer, like he is the first to ever do this kind of thing, or he becomes a worldwide expert in a particular specific expertise, then yes, you can promote him, just like Christian Barnard, just like Thomas Sturzel, and like many other doctors who did something really special. And based on that, the hospital built a brand as well.
Clinical. Yes, there is a discussion here about if doctor works in this clinic today, he can leave the hospital tomorrow, and he can go to other hospital or start his own practice, and the clinic will waste some time and money for promotion, specifically this doctor, and he will leave. What do you advise? Maybe to have some legal agreement with doctor, or how to manage this process? You know what I mean?
Of course, every case is individual. I mean, I cannot give overall advice what to do in that situation. Every situation is personal. I can say that, you know, if I am building a brand of a hospital based on a doctor, I have to know that that doctor is committed to that institution for a long time.
Наоборот, сюда. Да.
I'm a doctor. I have my personal already brand, Dr. Melnik. So I advise to all the doctors have their own brands. Just in our country, it's can be now, and a lot of doctors have their own brands, no matter what clinics you're working, because you're already known
as a doctor.
That's
what she said. It's like, you know, to register the own trademark. Officially, legally, to register trademark, like surname of doctor, Dr. Melnik, for example. She has this own brand already. That's why she advised to all who wants to promote the brand to register like a trademark. And doesn't matter in which clinic you are working, you are always staying by the brand, by your name. That's what she meant.
Okay, so it's a good advice if you are working in a small city, in a small country. But if you are a doctor in New York and you register your name, good luck. That's not enough.
Okay. That's very good advice, but we are not in New York, luckily. Yes, we got the point, and we agreed, and we had our discussion really active here. Thank you for your, your advices, which are always sharp and interesting. And so we should go to the end. Thank you, Ilan, for your time and for your
Thank you, everybody. Have a good time.
Thank you, everybody. You can stay with us, and we just have 10 minutes more about our finalization. We want to make some efforts for our participants, little efforts, and we just finished with one more project that I want to announce to open audience about one of our projects.